You, I know that you said that you weren't very, social and stuff like that.
Right.
Did you still feel like you knew a lot of people at the college?
Oh gosh,
I
yeah.
felt like because it was so small.
It didn't take long. You learn to make new friends. I did.
We have 5,000 students
Wow,
right now.
wow.
So it's like,
I knew everybody.
yeah.
Everybody in this. I don't remember how many students there were, but I knew everybody.
The academic reputation that Lake-Sumter has had from the very beginning has been one of the best.
A lot of people that graduated from there went on to higher education and became people of interest, I call it, because we have some that became teachers, some became lawyers, some became doctors.
And they just had Miss Griggs' funeral about 4 weeks ago. She passed away. Right there, she was that science teacher, one of the science teachers.
I don't think that I would have been able to accomplish the things that I wanted to accomplish.
This institution was built with the community at our focus, at our heart, and the stories and the things that happen to people here today are still timeless across 60 years worth of history.
This all used to be orange groves. If you've ever been to Lake County, it won't take long for someone who grew up in the area to remind you. They aren't kidding. The 1940s and 50s saw a boom in the citrus industry of Lake County. It was a beautiful place with warm weather, bass fishing, water skiing, and home to some of the most delicious fruit.
So in the 1960s in Lake County, the general industry was agriculture. You would find approximately 100,000 acres of orange groves in this area. It was one of the largest producers of citrus in the entire country during that time period.
Lake County was just full of citrus, so that was our big industry. Just even from 1963 to 1964, Lake County saw an $87 million surplus in its revenue, mainly driven by citrus, oranges, and grapefruits, but there were other planting as well as watermelons and sugarcane.
Leesburg is also nationally known as the state's fine watermelon growing center.
There was also farming industries, apiaries, regular growth of vegetables and cattle.
The workforce in Lake County was agriculture, whether you were a harvester, a picker, the farm owner, but there were businesses starting to emerge here. The city started to grow.
1950 saw a general population hovering around 36,000 people, but by 1960, that number had swelled by 21,000 to 56,000 people on average. And that doesn't include people who would come and work during season, and then they would migrate and move on to other areas.
Citrus was huge and would be for several more years, at least 20 more years.
Lake County was a very rural area. It's very telling that there were 300 churches in the area as of 1960, including one convent. I think a lot of what people did for fun around here involved religious life. It would have been church-related activities.
From its beginning, the community here was very religious. Church organizations, church functions were very, very important to the people of Lake County. There was an organization for everything, from garden clubs to women's clubs. The men had boating clubs, and they had Kiwanis and Rotaries.
So the existing workforce in the 1960s, they were working in general farmhand-related tasks, things like citrus grove tending. Pickers were always a thing that were needed. Part of the workforce was transient, so they might have had, at most, a high school education. In most cases, it was probably more like an 8th grade education.
The average education level in Lake County was 8th grade. That is why there was a drive towards higher education in Lake County, to give something more for the youth of Lake County to strive besides just working in the fields or taking over a farm. The crafts trades were coming in, whether it was electrical or plumbing, mechanical, for women, secretarial jobs, or cosmetics.
The idea for most students about going to college outside the area meant moving. It meant financial risk, it meant leaving behind their familial roots and going to a situation that they were very unaccustomed to. That need for higher education existed here pretty naturally. So there's an interesting story behind the founding of the junior colleges in the Florida system. Dr. James Wattenberger, who was at the University of Florida, wrote a dissertation in 1954 that kind of outlined a master plan for junior colleges. And in his plan, Dr. Wattenberger drew the attention of the Florida Department of Education, who were also considering at that time the option of having junior colleges available to the populace. Dr. Wattenberger's plan included a campus within 99% of the population's density, so they were within commuting distance of almost everyone in Florida.
The prompting for junior college actually was statewide. It actually began in 1957 with Governor Thomas Leroy Collins. He and the Florida legislature wanted to expand on higher education in Florida. The Board of Public Instruction at that time also saw that need as well, not only as the population started to grow, but for children to be able to get out of the fields of our citrus industry.
The Leesburg Chamber of Commerce actually started their own study as soon as they heard that this was something that was in the works with the Florida Department of Education. At that time, the president of the Leesburg Chamber of Commerce was Miss Marie Bowden, and she started a work program to investigate the need for the college in the area, and they started making their own connections once they learned that one of the areas that was planning to be served was Lake and Sumter counties. So they immediately started to move to solidify a plan to bring that here.
As news traveled of a local college being established in Lake County, arrangements were made to accommodate this new endeavor at the Leesburg High School. Students from all over Lake and Sumter counties would come to the Leesburg Community Center to enroll into their first semester of college. Sharon Broadway and Suzanne Schaefer would be one of those first students to take on the new educational opportunities of what would officially be known as Lake-Sumter Junior College.
I went to Mount Dora High School. Until I heard about Lake-Sumter, I had not planned to go to college. Then when I heard that Lake-Sumter was opening, I decided to go and take a secretarial course. We all went to what was then the community center in Leesburg, and it was just, everybody was there. We filled out the paperwork we needed and talked to a counselor, and that was it. It was very simple.
I was raised in Leesburg, and I was a student in the first class when Lake-Sumter started. We were really excited that there was going to be a local school that we could take advantage of. College was always a part of my plans. My mother was a school teacher, so she had education, and she was very supportive in my going on to college. And luckily, Lake-Sumter came along and the tuition was reasonable.
Lake-Sumter Junior College would be set up on the grounds of Leesburg High School, and they actually operated out of 6 modular buildings, which today they were temporary homes basically that were provided by upstanding members of the community, many of whom were part of either the college initial planning or people who were involved in the Board of Public Instruction. They eventually had 8 modular buildings within about 3 months after the initial opening of the college in 1962.
The campus that I attended was on a corner of Leesburg High School. It was all prefab buildings.
And it was up on the hill from the high school. We did have some of my classes in the high school because my secretarial classes were taught by one of the high school teachers, so we had our classes in the high school.
This was the first year, and it was pretty much make it or break it that first year.
Dr. Paul P. Williams would go on to take on the challenge of becoming the college's first president. Being selected from 40 applicants for the position, Dr. Paul Williams will be instrumental in taking the college from paper to reality by working hand in hand with the community. He was involved in the hiring of all the staff and faculty, bringing free transportation to Lake-Sumter students, and putting a plan together for a permanent site, all in less than a year from his hire date in January of 1962 to the beginning of classes in September of that same year.
Dr. Paul Williams was the first president of Lake-Sumter Junior College in 1962. His vision for the college isn't different from the vision for the college today. In that time, he was looking to provide educational attainment for the community in which we exist. His idea was to increase skills and workforce for the local community so that people could go right back into the community and reinvest their knowledge.
We always felt that we were welcome to go talk to him. He wanted his office to be open, and like telling us when we graduated that he wanted to know if we had any problems, because he wanted everybody to have a good educational experience and a good educational foundation.
It made a difference for a lot of people that they could go to college locally and not have to go off. It wasn't as expensive as a big university.
We had a lot of fun those first years. We selected the colors, the green and silver. We selected the name the Lakers.
We had a lot of dances, and that was fun. Enjoyed dancing back then. Anything Beatles, Ray Charles, Beach Boys, the Supremes. It was just really good music back then. You could understand every word they said.
Every weekend there was a dance that was put on for young people at the Elks Club in Leesburg. This wasn't a school-sponsored activity, but most of us went. And then I was the editor of the Angler. I was in the first play that was put on, the drama for the college.
I was a cheerleader. There were 5 of us. There was 4 girls and 1 guy, and I was captain of the cheerleaders. The only sport Lake-Sumter had was basketball.
I was one of the 3 members of the homecoming court.
I was the first homecoming queen, and I was very proud. It was a good feeling.
The 1960s were a time in America things were really happening. You had assassination of John F. Kennedy, the president at the time.
I was in shorthand class, and it came on the announcement that classes were dismissed, and the reason why, the assassination of President Kennedy. And it was, oh, what a shock that was. Never been through anything like that before.
So a lot of things were happening in the 1960s. The Lake County government, both the commissioners and the public instruction, did address the civil rights movement. Back in 1957, when the governor and the Florida legislature started enacting the program for higher education in Florida, of course, there was still a lot of separation at the time, but they did want equal opportunities for both Black and white children. So the need was there.
Racial segregation was present in Lake County in almost every way. Like many other places in America at that time period, separate but equal was the law of the land. So yes, racial segregation existed in Lake County in neighborhood choices. It was still separate water fountains, separate restrooms, separate dining options, even separate educational opportunities.
We had a separate junior college that started the same time we did for the blacks in our community. And they had their own place. And I think when it started, they were as happy about it as we were.
While the 1960s was a great time of progress in the nation, it was not without great struggles for equality. With the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, the Vietnam War, and the Civil Rights Movement, the younger generation looked to the betterment of their education to move forward. Black Americans all over the country began to demand better opportunities for their youth, and with the separate but equal policy still in place in the early 1960s, legislation was advanced to establish junior colleges for the Black community all over the state of Florida. The establishment of a sister college to Lake-Sumter Junior College, called Johnson Junior College, was amongst the great strides in education for Lake County the community would benefit from.
To live in Lake County in the 1960s was not a very pleasant experience for Blacks. Let's just get that on the table. I was born and bred here in Leesburg, Florida. I graduated from Carver Heights High School in 1957. And we lived in a segregated society. And there were incidents that was happening all around us.
And I remember an incident. The Methodists had a conference here at the old St. Paul's African Methodist Episcopal Church, and that was located right on the corner of Mike Street and Main Street. And we were having the opening session where they had choirs singing and just like a program. And one of the men that was there came up in the choir stand and they said, they're asking everybody to leave because Sheriff McCall is coming through Leesburg, and if he sees any Black people, he's going to have them shot. This was what we heard, and I could not believe that. I'm wondering, what are they talking about? But later, because our daddy was kind of very protective of us. He only had 3 girls. He said, I'm going to take y'all home, and I'm coming back, and I want to see. I guess he went back with a shotgun.
Historical accounts indicate that there could have been some issues with individuals of certain communities feeling safe, largely because in that time period, from 1949 until, say, approximately 1972, notorious Sheriff Willis McCall was consecutively reelected. Willis McCall was a well-known segregationist and an anti-miscegenist, and he was known to actively prosecute miscegenation laws in Lake County.
We knew we were supposed to be on one side and the white people on the other side. As far as we're concerned, that was the life in Leesburg.
Johnson Junior College was settled on the same location as Carver Heights High School, which was the segregated school for Blacks for the high school area.
The first president of the college was recruiting students. And he came to our church one Sunday, and he had also been my high school principal. He came and asked if there was anybody in the congregation who was interested in attending college. And then he explained the purpose of the junior college, and that was to give us an opportunity to further our education had we wanted to. But that's how it all got started. I had wanted to go to college and had planned to attend Kentucky State College in Frankfort, Kentucky, but it didn't work out for me. So in the end, I didn't see myself attending college, period. But then when this opportunity came along, I took it.
I was one of those that worked in the home. I was doing day work, they called it, working at different houses. And that's one of the motivations that got me wanting to further my education. And I had these children. So when I heard about the college, I said, well, this is my opportunity. But I didn't know that I was going to be able to attend until they opened. And Mrs. Williams, Perman Williams' wife, was our business teacher at Lake County Training School and at Carver Heights High. Mr. Williams called me and asked me, did I want to attend? And I told him, yeah. I said, but how can I go with these children? He said, you work it out. And he paid for my first tuition, which was $75 a semester at that time. And that was the greatest thing he could have ever done for me. I never forget that. And then he needed an extra secretary to help with the secretarial functions out there. And he asked me, was I interested? And I told him yes. And he hired me. So I attended and worked there at the same time. I just never will forget that. Bringing
students to the colleges, especially to Johnson Junior College in Leesburg, was very difficult. So the president of Johnson Junior College, Perman Williams, he actually out of his own funding, his own money, purchased a school bus. So all the students, he would go to all the surrounding counties and bring those students to the school. It was very generous of him to do, and it worked because it increased the enrollment and made Johnson Junior College and eventually Lake-Sumter Junior College, when they combined, very popular to Central Florida students.
They received 2 small buildings, and then they had additional issues with funding as far as library books go. They frequently sought out members of the community to try to drive in more interest and get more resources generated. One significant difference at this time was the salary difference between both presidents at Johnson Junior College, which was Perman E. Williams, and Lake-Sumter Junior College, which was Dr. Paul Williams. Dr. Paul Williams was initially given a salary of $12,000 a year, whereas Perman Williams was given a salary of $9,000 a year, a difference of $3,000. Largely, they had the same educational background and same educational experience, and Perman Williams never quite understood why that experience didn't make up for the differential between them.
We got books that were pages torn out and all this, but that was one of the realities that struck home, that you need to fight for better life, better educational rights. But a lot of the people in the Leesburg area at that time were just orange pickers, and most of our parents wanted us to have an education. I'd say the majority of the people in Leesburg that grew up along with us, they wanted their children to excel.
Most of the students that attended Johnson were, in the beginning, were very excited about having an additional place to go to for further education, higher education. I think it really opened a door for a lot of people. And I am truly grateful for the experiences that I had there, the learning experiences, and what it gave me. I appreciated the fact that it gave me an opportunity to be at home and to also have a college experience. I figured that they would eventually merge after integration, but I didn't expect it to happen as quickly as it did.
The time had come in America to end discrimination on all fronts. On July 2nd, 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This would outlaw discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. As a result, the desegregation of the public education system would be one of the major advancements that directly affected both Lake-Sumter Junior College and Johnson Junior College. 2 colleges would become one. Though the Civil Rights Act was considered a major victory for equal rights, the merger of Lake-Sumter Junior College and Johnson Junior College was met with some reservations from certain members of the Black community in Lake and Sumter counties.
So the community's reception to the merger between Lake-Sumter Junior College and Johnson Junior College was mixed in this community. Overwhelmingly, the majority of people supported that merger and integration, but certain members of the Black community actually fought against that. A particular group was fairly vocal about their decision not to support the merger. This group was the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance. And they went to a Board of Public Education meeting and mentioned specifically that they did not see that this was an advisable act for the African American community. However, the Board of Public Instruction, pointing to the 1964 Civil Rights Act, reminded this particular group that there could be no segregated public education going forward because it had been outlawed.
As far as the merge is concerned, I felt that Johnson would lose its identity, which it did. Not very many people in later years even knew that it had existed.
Mr. Williams called a meeting of all the faculty and staff and addressed the fact that the law had come down that they were going to merge the two colleges. There would be no more separate colleges in Leesburg. And he said that he was going to start looking for jobs, trying to make sure everybody was relocated, had a job somewhere or another. Everybody was heartbroken because we loved it and we knew that it was not going to be the same. But he wanted to make sure that all of us had jobs.
Lake-Sumter Junior College's merger with Johnson Junior College ultimately resulted in Dr. Paul Williams becoming the official named president of the institution that evolved out of the merger. It was decided that Mr. Perman Williams, who had been the first president of Johnson Junior College, would instead assume the role of dean of the Johnson Center. Only 3 members of the Johnson Junior College staff actually joined Lake-Sumter Junior College. Horace Jones, who had been the dean of students at Johnson Junior College, joined Lake-Sumter. Christine Hamilton joined Lake-Sumter. She had been an assistant to Perman E. Williams, and Perman E. Williams himself joined. After the fact, Dr. Williams would state that, Johnson Junior College had been an integral part of the community and that, they fully supported the Johnson Center. So after Perman Williams left Lake-Sumter Junior College in 1966, he actually went to work for the Board of Public Instruction with the Florida Department of Education, and he helped oversee the remaining integration of various public schools in Florida.
The enrollment was huge when Lake-Sumter and Johnson Community Colleges eventually merged. Lake-Sumter College was respected highly for education and advancement because of the enrollment. The enrollment just didn't come from Lake County and Sumter County. It started coming from surrounding counties as far as Hillsborough, Osceola, Orange County. Students began to enroll at Lake-Sumter Junior College. So I think its popularity took off immediately.
The retention of Black students for students that came from Johnson Junior College to Lake-Sumter State College actually continued to be strong. The school had been doing an exceptionally good job of recruiting and pulling in students. In fact, in their first year, Johnson Junior College outstripped what they had actually estimated as far as enrollment would actually be. They had initially anticipated that there would be approximately 75 students, but it ended up being more like 115 before the end of that first year. Those students did matriculate to Lake-Sumter Junior College, and their faces could later be seen in subsequent yearbooks. So the retention of Black students at the school was actually quite high despite the merger. And despite some opposition from members of the African American community who felt like they may be losing their identity by merging into the school, you only need to take a quick glance through the Naiads, which is the college's yearbook, that document all of the diversity that occurred in 1965 and beyond.
Over the years, Lake-Sumter Junior College went through many stages of growth. In 1970, the Florida legislature authorized a division of community colleges that would oversee all the community colleges in the state, and the name would change to Lake-Sumter Community College.
I was debating whether to come to a community college or go straight to a university, but most of my friends and we decided to come to Lake-Sumter. In the 70s, we still had a climate of some of the racism and things going on, but honestly, at Lake-Sumter Community College, the students, we really got along. My sister attended, of course, Johnson Junior College, and her experience back then attending a college like that I'm sure was a big benefit, because my sister always talks about her experience of how she learned so much, like from that college, and how it boosted her to go on. You know, when you have role models in your own family, those are the best role models, because my mother had a lot of children and my father had a lot of children. So to see my older siblings go to college, you know, and succeed, that definitely pushed me that I definitely want to follow in their footsteps. Here, I was focused on journalism, and that's why I was a member of the Angler staff at that time. I was in the drama clubs, so I did a lot of the acting while I was here, and the same theater. Bring back some memories being here today. I ran for Miss Lake-Sumter Community College. The biggest thing I remember, President Jimmy Carter came. We had a president coming. That was a big thing for us. We had pretty good camaraderie here.
To better serve the needs of the community, new campuses were built in other areas of the county, such as Sumterville and Claremont. Along with the expansion to the west and south of Leesburg, grew a desire to expand the college's degree offerings. In 2013, the name of the college changed again to Lake-Sumter State College and began offering a 4-year degree program for the first time in its history. Now, today, more than 60 years later, we celebrate the great advancements in higher education in Lake and Sumter counties, and under the leadership of the current president, more growth is on the horizon, and access to education is one of the college's key objectives.
I was inspired to work in education, and I love Lake-Sumter State College, mainly because I am a first-generation college student. My parents did not really understand how important education was. So I went to work, and I was not a traditional student. But I got my start at the community college, and I had amazing faculty members and staff members who supported me, who helped me understand what I needed to do to be successful. And I know the importance of a community college and what it can do in a person's life. Education changes the trajectory of a person's life.
The most important thing about having a local state community college in the community is educational accessibility.
Accessibility is important to serving those in Central Florida because there are so many students who they don't know how to get started. And Lake-Sumter State College is a great place for students to come, understand, and have the support they need to help students who may not have considered going to college.
Well, with the big campus now, it gives a place for not only students out of high school, but older people to be able to go back and take classes and possibly get some type of a degree that they've always wanted to have.
I have just read about the plans for the future of Lake-Sumter and the addition of new campuses, and I think it's wonderful.
I believe that the value of a local college in the area is, as it was for me, to live at home near family and people that care about you and that you care about, and the community, an asset to the community.
We never will forget the fact that we had a black college in Leesburg, Lake County, Florida, and that it produced men and women of a great caliber.
You too can be a part of our efforts to increase access to higher education. Visit lssc.edu/foundation to donate today.
How about that? Wasn't that a juicy story?